Michael Carter had everything: big buildings, expensive cars in long rows, private jets. People stood up when he walked into a room, they clapped when he gave a speech. His phone never stopped ringing. He was rich beyond what most people could imagine. His family owned Carter Global Industries. People feared him, some worshipped him. But deep inside, Michael was tired of fake smiles, tired of women who only loved his money, not his heart. The world called him brilliant, powerful, untouchable. Then came the lonely nights. Every night was quiet. Too quiet. He lived alone in a big mansion with rooms he never entered. The lights were on, but his heart felt dark. His bed was soft, but sleep never came easily. He would lie there staring at the ceiling, asking himself the same question every night. Does anyone love me for me? Michael had dated many women, models, lawyers, influencers. They smiled at his money, they laughed at his jokes, even when they weren't funny. But deep down, Michael knew they didn't love him, they loved the billionaire. Then came Susan. She was smart, charming, and kind, or so he thought. He gave her his heart, he bought her a ring, he planned a future. But one morning he walked into his office early and found her with his chief financial officer, laughing, kissing. Michael said nothing. He turned around and walked out. That day, something in him broke. He canceled the wedding, fired the CFO, and locked himself in his mansion for days. No one saw him, not even his assistant, Nora. People thought he went abroad, but he stayed home, thinking, hurting, and wondering, was I not enough for her? If I was poor, would anyone choose me? That night, as rain poured outside and thunder shook the windows, Michael stood by the glass and whispered to himself, I'm going to find out. He turned around, picked up his phone, and called Nora. Get me an old shirt, torn trousers, and slippers, he said. Sir, she asked, confused. No designer clothes, no watch, no car. I want to look like a man with nothing. Nora stayed quiet for a second, then said, Yes, sir. Michael Carter, billionaire CEO of the Carter Group, had made up his mind. He was going to pretend to be a poor beggar. Not to play games, but to find out if real love still existed. He didn't rush. He knew that if he suddenly turned into a street beggar, someone might recognize him. So he decided to take it slow, step by step. He stopped shaving, his beard grew thick and wild. He stopped wearing suits, instead he wore old t-shirts, slippers, and jeans with holes. No wristwatch, no phone calls with fancy people, no drivers or bodyguards following him in big black cars. He packed a small bag and left his mansion before sunrise. The housekeepers thought he had traveled. No one knew where he was going, not even his parents. They were in London for business. That made things easier. That was his chance. Michael found a small room in a rundown part of town. The walls were cracked, the window had no curtain, the mattress smelled like dust. But he didn't complain, he wanted to live like a man who had nothing. Every day he walked the streets. He took up small jobs, pushing wheelbarrows at the market, helping carpenters, sometimes washing cars. He got paid in cash, small notes that he folded into his pocket. Nobody knew who he was, and for the first time in years, he felt invisible, and strangely, it felt good. At night, Michael sat on the edge of his old bed, looking at the torn calendar on the wall, thinking about his life, the real him hidden behind money and power. This was what he had wanted, a clean slate. He spoke only when necessary. He smiled at people who passed by. Most ignored him, a few nodded, some stared, but no one recognized him. He had always been private. Even as a billionaire, he hated the spotlight. That worked in his favor now. Back in the city, Nora was working behind the scenes. She trusted Michael even if she didn't understand this plan. She used elite dating apps to arrange blind dates for him. Each woman was told the same story. You're meeting a man who used to have a good life but lost everything in this hard economy. he's now doing manual jobs and trying to start over. None of them knew he was Michael Carter, the billionaire son of Chief Carter. Michael met each woman at cheap restaurants or roadside spots, simple places with plastic chairs and hot food on foil. He always arrived early, sat with his head down, and waited. Of course, Nora had arranged one more thing: discreet security. Michael had 2 bodyguards watching from a distance. Every time, they didn't wear suits or talk in earpieces, so they blended into the background. Their eyes were always on him, just in case. Michael didn't want trouble, he just wanted the truth. Could anyone love a man with nothing? The test had begun. The first date came on a Thursday evening. Michael wore a faded shirt and jeans, his hair was messy, his shoes were dusty from walking all day. He sat outside a small buka that served jollof rice and suya. The sky was turning orange and the air smelled of spice and smoke. She arrived wearing a bright pink dress, heels that clicked on the concrete, and long nails that sparkled in the sun. Her name was Tina. She was a fashion influencer with over 100,000 followers on Instagram. She looked around once, saw Michael, frowned, then looked around again as if hoping this was a mistake. "You're the one?" she asked. Michael smiled. "Yes. Thank you for coming." She sat down slowly, her face already wrinkled in disgust. "You know, I thought it was a prank," she said, pulling out her phone. "You actually invited me here, like here?" Michael stayed calm. "It's quiet. I like the food." Tina laughed out loud. "I can't do this," she said, grabbing her bag. "Next time, please dress like a human being, not like someone who just woke up from the gutter." She left before the waitress even brought water. Michael sat in silence, waited a few minutes, paid for everything, and walked home in the dark. The second date was more serious. Her name was Debbie, a lawyer, sharp, confident, smart. She asked good questions, but something felt off. They met at a roadside spot where pepper soup was served in steel bowls. "You said you do manual work?" she asked, not smiling. "Yes." "What kind of work exactly? Daily pay or weekly?" "Depends on the job," Michael replied. "What kind of house do you live in now?" Michael looked at his small room in a shared building. "Here." She nodded, pulling out a notebook. "Ever been married? How many siblings do you have? Where do your parents stay? What did you study? What's your last name again?" She didn't eat, she just kept writing. Michael answered politely, carefully hiding the truth. She wasn't there to know him. She was there to calculate if he was a good investment. When the food came, she stood up. "I'll call you," she said. She never did. The third one almost fooled him. Sandra was soft-spoken, polite, even sweet. She smiled a lot. She said she loved humble men. She said she had a heart for people who were going through things and hustling hard to make a living. Michael thought maybe this one is different. They talked for hours. She asked about his life, his dreams. She told him stories about growing up poor, how she understood suffering. Michael walked her home that night. She held his hand and said she felt something real. The next morning, she texted, "Hey love, I didn't want to ask, but I'm in a tough spot. My rent just expired and I have nothing in the house to eat. Even small help would mean a lot. I really believe in us." Michael stared at his phone. So that's what it was again, not love, just hunger for what they thought he had. That night, Michael sat outside his small room. The moon was full and dogs barked in the distance. He didn't speak, didn't move. He just sat there. His heart felt tired. He thought about the dates, about all the smiles that turned fake. Maybe there was no such thing as true love. Maybe no one saw the man, only the name, only the money. Maybe that's all he would ever be to them. Michael woke up one morning and just sat on his bed. staring at the wall. The fan above his head spun slowly. The air was hot. His clothes clung to his back with sweat. His heart was tired. He had been kind, patient, honest. And still, every woman saw him as either a joke or a wallet. He picked up his phone and called Nora. When she answered, he didn't even greet her. He just said, "I'm done." Nora paused. "What do you mean?" "I've tried. I've talked. I've walked miles in this heat, sat in broken chairs, eaten food from cheap plates, and still nothing. No one is real. Maybe they never were." "Sir, I'm just a target," he said. "They don't want me. They want what I might have." He was ready to pack his bags and return to the mansion. But then Nora's voice softened. "There are good men and women out there, sir." He went quiet. "You never told me about your husband," he replied. "He was not rich when we got married. We met when we were both broke. We had nothing but hope, and now, 10 years later, we're still standing happy, and now we have all we need." Michael didn't say anything. Nora added, "Don't let 3 bad women stop you from believing in the one good one." He scoffed. "You really believe someone can love a man who has nothing?" She replied, "Yes, but only if that man becomes nothing for real." Michael's eyes narrowed. "Fine," he said. "Let's take it all the way." Nora blinked. "What do you mean?" "I'll go out again," he said. "But this time not as a poor worker." He stood up slowly. "I want to see if anyone in this world can love a man who looks like he's lost everything." There was a long silence on the line. Then, to his surprise, Nora said quietly, "Okay, I'll help." The next day, Nora brought a bag. Inside were torn trousers, 2 ragged shirts, a threadbare hoodie, and a pair of worn-out sandals. There was also an old sack, faded with tiny holes like something used to carry garbage. Michael put them on. He looked in the mirror. He didn't even recognize himself. Nora adjusted his collar and whispered, "Don't speak much. Just sit, watch, and listen." Michael nodded. Then he reached into a small metal box and pulled out something he had prepared the night before. A folded check. It was signed amount, 5 million. "I'll give this," he said, "to the first woman who shows me real kindness, not because I beg her, but because she chooses to care." Nora swallowed hard. "Good luck," she said. Michael took his sack and left. He sat near market gates, bus stops, and busy junctions in the heart of the city. His clothes were dusty. His hair was wild. He didn't speak unless spoken to. People walked past. Some looked at him with pity, others laughed. Some dropped coins, most ignored him. Hours passed, then days. The world moved around him like a rushing river, but Michael stayed still, waiting, watching, hoping. From dawn till dusk, he changed locations, sometimes by the roadside, other times at bus parks or market entrances. People passed him every minute. Some whispered, some laughed. Some looked through him like he didn't exist. A few dropped coins. One woman even threw bread at him like he was a dog. But what broke him the most were the ones who pretended to care. There was one girl, Toke, who stopped beside him, smiled sweetly and said, "You look like you've been through a lot, poor thing." Michael looked up, grateful, pretending like he hadn't eaten that day. "Please," he said softly, "can I have some water or bread?" Toke's smile faded instantly. "You want to eat?" She burst into laughter and walked away, calling her friend on the phone. Guess what? One smelly beggar just asked me for food. Another woman, Kiki, sat beside him, took selfies with him, and told him to smile for the camera. She uploaded the pictures with the caption, "Helping the needy is a vibe. #blessed." Then she left without saying anything, no food, no kindness, just likes and comments. Michael began to wonder if the world had completely lost its heart. Maybe Nora was wrong. Maybe kindness was gone. It was on the fifth evening. The clouds were heavy. The sky was dark. Rain had begun to fall. Not soft rain, but sharp, cold drops that slapped the ground and soaked the earth. Michael pulled his hoodie tighter. He sat near a tailor shop, its wooden sign barely hanging, the thread and needle logo washed out by years of sun. Then she came. She ran across the road with an umbrella in one hand and a nylon bag in the other. Her dress was simple, a lilac blouse and black trousers. She wore plastic slippers and had her hair covered with a scarf. She stopped suddenly when she saw him sitting under a leaking zinc shade. Her eyes didn't show fear or disgust, they showed concern. "So you're getting wet," she said gently. Michael looked up, he was shivering. She opened her bag and brought out a small container. She didn't say much, just offered it to him with both hands. "It's rice and beans," she said. "I cooked it for myself, but please eat, you look hungry." Michael took it slowly, not believing what was happening. She also took off her own wrapper and placed it over his shoulders. "This one is dry," she said. "You'll fall sick like this." He stared at her, silent. "Thank you," he whispered. She smiled. "I'm Emily," she said. "I sew clothes and teach at a nursery school nearby." He nodded. "I'm Michael, just trying to survive." "I can see," she replied softly. "Life is hard these days." She didn't ask for anything. She didn't take pictures. She didn't look down on him, just kindness, pure and honest. After a while, the rain grew heavier. Emily looked at him and said, "If you want, you can stay by my shop till the rain stops. I'll be here sewing anyway." Michael swallowed a lump in his throat. "No one has spoken to me kindly in a long time," he said. Emily smiled again. "Then it's about time someone did." He followed her to the shop, small, wooden, and full of fabric. And for the first time in weeks, Michael felt accepted. That night, the rain didn't stop. It kept pouring, beating the roof of Emily's tiny sewing shop like drumming fingers. Michael sat on a small stool near her table, his clothes drying slowly under the warm light of a single bulb. Emily boiled water in an electric kettle and poured it into a cup of tea. "Drink this, you'll feel better," she said, handing it to him. He took it with both hands. It was the kindest thing anyone had given him in weeks. They sat in silence for a while. Then Michael spoke softly. "I'm homeless now." Emily looked at him, surprised but not shocked. He expected pity or judgment, but she simply nodded. "Well, if you don't mind, you can stay here," she said, glancing around her shop. "It's not much, but it's dry and safe." Michael blinked. "You'd let me sleep here?" She smiled gently. "Why not? My house is just around the corner. I come here every evening after teaching. I'll bring you food." Michael felt something warm in his chest, not from the tea, but from her. He looked around again, the sewing machines, rolls of fabric, empty thread spools. "I can help you," he said. "With your sewing or errands, anything." Emily laughed. "You know how to sew? I can learn." And so days passed. Michael helped clean the shop, cut fabrics, carry bags for customers, and deliver finished clothes. In the evenings, he waited for Emily to return from school, dusty and tired, but always smiling. She'd change into her sewing gown and work until late at night, stitching, measuring, folding. Michael watched her closely. She was not just kind. She was fire and grace all at once. A woman who taught children all day and still had the strength to build a business in the evening. One day, as they folded wrappers and laughed at a crooked zipper, Michael said jokingly, "You know I'm actually a billionaire, right?" Emily chuckled, not even looking up. "Well, whether rich or poor, a kind man is still a treasure." Michael smiled. He reached into his shirt and brought out the folded check. He placed it on the table. Emily looked at it, picked it up, and read the numbers slowly. "5 million?" she said with raised eyebrows, then laughed again. "You're funny," she said, folding it and handing it back. "You must be practicing comedy." Michael just stared at her, amazed. She didn't blink. Not once did her eyes show greed. One evening, as they ate roasted yams and groundnut oil outside the shop, Emily looked quiet. Michael noticed. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Just thinking about my family," she said, looking at him a little shyly. "My mom has been urging me to bring someone home. There's a celebration this weekend, my mother's 50th birthday. Everyone will be there, aunties, uncles, cousins, and questions. You know the kind." She smiled faintly. "When will you marry? Where's your man? Are you sure you're not hiding someone?" Michael chuckled. "I know those questions too well." Emily looked at him, eyes twinkling. "I was wondering, would you come with me? Just pretend to be my fiancé." Michael blinked. "Me?" She nodded slowly. "I know it's silly, but I'd rather go with someone I'm familiar with rather than lie again or be mocked." Michael looked at her. She wasn't joking. She wasn't ashamed of him in his ragged clothes, dusty slippers, and old hoodie. She was asking him to stand beside her. He smiled, heart pounding softly. "I'd be honored." Emily and Michael traveled to her village early Saturday morning. Michael had trimmed his beard just a little and wore a plain button-up shirt with dark trousers. He no longer looked like a beggar, but he didn't wear anything flashy either, just simple, clean, respectful. As they reached the family compound, loud voices, music, and laughter filled the air. Her mother's birthday party was already in full swing. Plastic chairs were scattered across the yard. Steam rose from pots of jollof rice. Meat sizzled on grills. They had barely stepped in when her elder sister, Linda, spotted them. She wore a bright green dress, gold jewelry that swung as she walked, and carried herself like a queen. Linda was a bank manager in the big city, and she made sure everyone knew it. She glanced at Michael from head to toe, her nose wrinkled. "This is him?" she said, folding her arms. "Emily, this is your fiancé?" Emily smiled, her arm gently linked with Michael's. "Yes, Linda, meet Michael." Linda didn't smile. Her eyes scanned his simple shirt, quiet shoes, and calm eyes. "Couldn't you find someone more sophisticated?" she asked sarcastically. "Or at least someone who didn't look like he borrowed his clothes from a bus driver?" Michael didn't respond, he just nodded respectfully. "Nice to meet you." Linda scoffed. As they walked into the main compound, Emily whispered, "Sorry about her." Michael smiled. "I've heard worse." Later that afternoon, the entire family sat around the dinner table, plates clinked, drinks flowed, and conversations buzzed. Then Jerry walked in, tall, dark, loud, Emily's ex. He wore a designer shirt with the Carter Group logo on the chest and walked like he owned the place. He greeted everyone with a fake smile and gave Emily a long hug, longer than necessary. Michael watched quietly. "I heard you're engaged," Jerry said, turning to Michael. This him? Emily nodded. Yes, this is Michael. And what are you doing here? Jerry chuckled loud enough for the table to hear. Well, he said. From the look of things, Emily's taste hasn't improved. And to answer your question, your mom invited me. The table went quiet. Jerry continued, you know, when you left me, I thought you were upgrading, but it looks like you went from SUV to bicycle. A few people laughed nervously. Michael didn't flinch, but Emily leaned forward. I would choose Michael over you 100 times, she said clearly, because unlike you, she added, he respects me and he doesn't cheat with his secretary and then blame it on stress. Jerry's face stiffened, but before he could reply, Emily's mother cleared her throat, her voice firm. Michael, tell me, she said, what exactly do you do for a living? Michael smiled softly. I do little things here and there. Emily's mother wasn't impressed. So no job, no land, no car, how exactly are you going to take care of my daughter? Mom, Emily cut in, I'm happy, isn't that what matters? Her mother stared at Michael. Are you sure you're not manipulating her, hiding behind kind words because you know you have nothing to offer? Michael remained calm. He didn't defend himself, he didn't raise his voice, he simply looked down and folded his napkin. That night, after the guests had gone and the moon hung low, Michael stepped outside the house and made a quiet phone call. Nora, send it tomorrow. The next morning, the sun rose over Emily's family compound. Everyone gathered in the yard for breakfast, laughing, eating leftover rice, and sharing stories. Then a loud sound came from outside. Vroom! The deep hum of a car engine turned heads. A sleek black SUV pulled up, followed by two more vehicles. All three were sparkling clean, tinted, and clearly expensive. The driver stepped out, holding a red file and a small box. Who is the mother of Miss Emily? He asked. Emily's mother stepped forward, confused. He handed her a box. Your daughter's fiancé instructed me to deliver this. Inside the box, keys to a brand new car. The crowd gasped. Wait, is this for real? Someone shouted. Before Michael could say a word, Jerry stood tall, grinning. Come on now, he said, patting his chest. You know I had to do something special for the woman who raised my first love. I turned to him. You bought all this? Someone asked. Jerry winked. Supervisor for Carter Group, remember, life has changed. Everyone clapped. Emily's uncles clinked their drinks together. Linda hugged Jerry. Wow, you're too much. Emily, this is how you know a real man. Michael stood quietly beside Emily. He didn't speak, even though he was the one who had prepared the gift. He didn't correct them, he just watched. Later that week, back in the city, Emily invited Michael to a housewarming party. Her old schoolmate, Juliet, had just bought a flat and invited all their university friends. Juliet's home was bright and shiny, modern lights, leather chairs, and a big TV playing music videos. The girls wore makeup and expensive perfume, the guys wore loud cologne and talked about jobs in oil companies, banks, and foreign firms. Emily wore a plain gown and flat shoes. Michael wore his usual quiet clothes. They barely entered when whispers started. Is that Emily? Still dressing like a helper. She was the best graduating student, right? Guess brains don't always mean money. They laughed. Juliet welcomed them with a plastic smile. Emily, long time. Then she turned to Michael. Emily smiled proudly. This is Michael, my fiancé. Juliet raised her eyebrows. What do you do, Michael? Emily smiled. He's just trying to make his way. Ah, no company? Nope. No startup. Nope. Someone whispered, he looks like he just came from fixing the generator at the back. More laughter. One of the girls looked at Emily and said, "You always liked struggle, now you really went from class to grass." A guy pointed at Michael's shoes. "Where did you buy those?" "The thrift market." Another girl squinted. "Wait, wasn't he the guy asking for directions at the bus stop last week? You sure he's not a thief?" Michael's smile didn't fade. He knew who he was, and he didn't need to explain it. But before Emily could say anything, Juliet made a face and waved her hand. "Sorry, but I think you should leave. My neighbors are watching." Within minutes, a security man appeared. "Please, madam," he said, "you should go." Michael stood up quietly. Emily didn't hesitate. She stood too, grabbed her bag, and said loud enough for the whole room to hear, "You may have nice floors and lights, but if you think this is class, then I don't want it." She looked around the room. "Don't look down on people just because you think you're better. You don't know anyone's story." Then she held Michael's hand. "Let's go." They walked out, heads high, hearts heavy, but together. Emily held Michael's hand tightly as they stepped toward the door. Her eyes burned, but she didn't let the tears fall, not here, not in front of them. They had mocked his clothes, his shoes, even his silence, but she didn't care. She was proud of him, proud of the man he was. He worked hard and had a kind heart. That was enough for her. They were 2 steps from the gate when it happened. Horns, lights, engines, the ground trembled slightly. Everyone paused. Through the wide estate gates, 3 black SUVs rolled in one after the other. Behind them, 2 sleek sedans. The cars moved slowly, commanding attention. The music stopped, even the DJ stood still. The first SUV door opened and a tall man in a black suit stepped out, wearing an earpiece. He scanned the crowd, nodded once, and opened the second door. Nora stepped out calm, dressed in corporate black. She walked straight toward Michael. "Sir," she said with a small bow, "everything is in place." Gasps spread like wildfire. "Sir, who's she talking to?" Before anyone could understand more, bodyguards stepped out. People began to record on their phones. One guy whispered, "I think this is a movie shoot." Another girl said, "Wait, that guy looks like someone I've seen in the news." Emily's hand trembled in Michael's. He turned to her, eyes soft. Then, gently, he let go of her hand, took 2 steps forward, reached into his back pocket, pulled out a folded file, and raised his voice. Not in anger, but clear enough for the whole room to hear. "My name is Michael Carter." The silence was loud. "I am the CEO of Carter Group and the only son of Chief and Mrs. Carter." He held up the documents, his identity, his company shares. They quickly picked up their phones and began browsing, their hands shaking in disbelief. Photos of him with presidents, speeches, awards. Juliet's mouth hung open. One of the girls dropped her wine glass. The guy who mocked his shoes sat down weakly. A boy in the back had been live-streaming the whole thing. Within minutes, the video was trending. #beggar-turned-billionaire, #Carter-reveals. Michael turned to Emily, his voice softened. "I came to you with nothing, Emily. No name, no status, just a tired heart and empty hands." She was frozen, tears filling her eyes. "You gave me food when you had little. You gave me shelter when you thought I had nowhere to go. You gave me kindness when the world gave me judgment." He knelt down and brought out a small velvet box. The entire room gasped, even the security guards looked surprised. He opened it slowly, a diamond ring glistened under the lights. "Emily," he said, his voice shaking a little, "you are a rare gem, and I want to spend the rest of my life thanking God for letting me find you. Will you marry me?" Emily covered her mouth, tears falling freely now. She nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Michael." The room broke into applause. Some people clapped awkwardly, others stood frozen in shame. Juliet walked up slowly, face red with embarrassment. "Michael, I'm so sorry for everything we said. We didn't know." He looked at her calmly. "You judged the packaging, not the person." Then he turned back to Emily, holding her hand, eyes never leaving hers. Surrounded by silent stares and flashing cameras, Michael and Emily walked away side by side, not as beggar and teacher but as soulmates. 2 days after the housewarming drama, Michael held a press conference. It wasn't for business, it wasn't for profit, it was personal. Cameras flashed, microphones pointed forward, reporters whispered, waiting. Then Michael stepped up to the podium wearing a dark blue suit, calm and confident. Nora stood beside him. He cleared his throat. "I have a personal announcement to make today," he began, "one that's bigger than any company deal or contract." He looked into the cameras. "I want to publicly introduce the woman who changed my life with a plate of food, a dry wrapper, and the kindest heart I've ever known. Her name is Emily Williams, and she is my fiancée." The press room gasped. Screens lit up across the country. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Blogs, headlines, social media. Carter CEO engaged to seamstress schoolteacher, from kindness to crown, Emily and the billionaire. Back in the village, phones started ringing. Emily's mother sat in silence, reading the news on her small phone, lips pressed together. Linda cried softly in the kitchen, ashamed of her words. Jerry sat on his bed, pale. He knew he had insulted, mocked, and even stolen credit in front of the real boss, the CEO of the company where he was only a supervisor in a small branch. His hands shook. He didn't sleep that night. In the city, Michael had a surprise planned. He took Emily to a beautiful house with white walls, golden lights, and flower gardens. "This is yours," he said. She stared, speechless. "And this," he added, holding up a car key, "is your new car." Then he gave her an envelope. She opened it slowly. $100 million in your name. For your business, your sewing, your dreams." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but then she handed it back. Michael blinked. "I didn't help you because I wanted anything," she said softly. "I helped you because it was right. I can't take this." Michael looked at her, stunned. Nora, standing nearby, chuckled and whispered, "I told you so." Michael laughed quietly. "Eyes still on Emily. And I'm never letting you go," he said. Later that evening, Michael's parents returned from their long business trip abroad. The house was quiet when they arrived. A few minutes after they settled in, Nora entered the room with a soft knock. "Your son is finally engaged. I believe you must have seen the news," she said gently. His mother's smile froze. "To that, nobody?" she asked. Her face tightened. She stood up, pacing. "She's a schoolteacher," she said, voice sharp. "A seamstress. She's not from our world, Nora." His father stayed quiet. "She will embarrass us at international events. What will people say?" Nora replied calmly, "People will say your son found love, that's all." But Michael's mother wasn't having it. "She is not his equal." She folded the article and threw it on the table. "This is not over." The next morning, Michael sat across from his parents in the grand living room of the Carter mansion. Sunlight poured through the glass walls, but the air felt cold. His mother sat upright, fingers tapping slowly on the armrest. His father, as always, stayed quiet, watching. "I'm happy you're back, Michael," he said softly. "There's something I want to share." "We already know," his mother cut in. She placed a tablet on the table. It showed Emily's face, smiling, holding his hand. "She's sweet," his mother added, voice tight. "But Michael, this can't work." He looked at her. "She's kind, hardworking, smart. What more could I want?" "You need someone who fits our world," she said. "Someone who understands power, politics, public life." "She understands me," his mother said firmly. "She made me believe in love again." Michael shook his head. "She made me believe in myself," he said. "And you know that too. My assets aren't all from the Carters. I'm not afraid to start again." The silence in the room was loud. The war between love and legacy had truly begun. Michael left the mansion that day feeling like he had been ripped in half. He had chosen love, but at what cost? His inheritance, his company, everything his name carried. That night, he sat with Emily in her small living room. The fan creaked above them, a single bulb flickered gently. She sat beside him, quiet. He could see the pain in her eyes. "You don't have to say it," she said softly. "I know what your parents said." Michael turned to her. "I don't care what they say." "But Michael," she whispered, "you've worked for that company since you were 20. It's your life, it's your name." He held her hand. "You are more than all of that," he said. "You're giving me a new world, a better one." But deep inside, Emily was hurting. She saw the pressure, the looks from people, the headlines, the deals falling apart. She didn't want to be the reason he lost his position as CEO of Carter Group. The next morning, Michael woke up and didn't find her. Her sewing machine sat still, her fabric pile untouched. On the table was a small note written in neat, soft handwriting. "I love you with all my heart, but I'd rather see you succeed than be the reason you lose everything." Emily. Michael stood there, the note shaking in his hands. He felt like the world had dropped out from under him. Days passed, then came the High Society Gala. It was hosted at Carter Towers, gold chandeliers, silk curtains, press and paparazzi everywhere. It was supposed to be a night of power, a night to announce Michael's engagement to Tenny, the daughter of the Senate president. She stood near the stage in a glittering gown, smiling as the cameras flashed. Michael arrived late, all eyes turned. He walked in wearing a plain black suit, no tie, no designer pin, just calm strength in his step. He walked to the stage and held the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," he began. Silence. "I know this night was meant for an announcement, and there is one." People leaned forward. He looked around, then said clearly, "I don't want a queen from politics. I want a queen with a heart, the queen of my heart." A few gasped. Tenny blinked, confused. "My parents gave me an ultimatum." He paused. "I chose love." He looked straight into the crowd, voice steady. "If you can't accept the woman who gave me hope when I was lost, who made me see the good in people, then I'll step down as CEO tonight. If I can't lead with my own heart, then I have no business leading at all." Gasps turned to murmurs. People exchanged stunned glances. He stepped down from the stage and walked out into the night, head high, heart open. Meanwhile, far away from there, Emily sat quietly on the edge of her bed. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held a small white test strip. 2 pink lines. She stared at them again and again, tears rolling down her cheeks. Silent, soft, not from fear but from the weight of love and confusion sitting heavy in her heart. She was pregnant. It had been 2 weeks since she left Michael. She hadn't picked up his calls, hadn't opened his messages. She had changed towns, moved in with an old friend, and started teaching at a small community school. Every day she told herself, "It's better this way, he has enough pressure, he deserves to fly without worrying about me. I'll raise this child alone, quietly, with love." But some nights she held her pillow and cried silently because she missed him so deeply. Meanwhile, Michael was restless. He had searched every corner of the city, called every number, checked every neighborhood where she might be, but no one had heard from her. He stood outside her old sewing shop one evening. The lights were off, the air still. He whispered, "Where are you, Emily?" He had given up everything, but without her, even freedom felt empty. One quiet afternoon, Michael's mother was at a charity event in a small town. She had decided to escape the noise after the gala disaster when Michael walked away from his legacy. As she passed a health center, she saw a familiar face, thin, tired, but glowing. It was Emily. She was helping a pregnant woman carry a bag of baby clothes. Michael's mother paused. She watched Emily from a distance. How she smiled softly, held the woman's hand, wiped her tears, looked down at her own belly bump. It wasn't obvious to ordinary onlookers, but for a mother with a keen eye, it was clear. Her eyes widened, her heart stilled. She asked the nurse quietly, "Do you know that young woman?" The nurse smiled. "That's Miss Emily, a sweet girl. She teaches the children here. She's expecting. She lives humbly but always helps others." Michael's mother stood in silence for a long time. The woman she had once rejected, the one she said wasn't from their world, was now carrying her grandchild and carrying it with grace. For the first time in a long while, something in her heart melted. She sat quietly in her room that evening, holding a cup of tea that had gone cold. She kept thinking of Emily's face, the way she smiled through pain, helped others with nothing, and carried Michael's child without asking for a thing. Her husband walked in, silent as usual, reading the day's financial reports. "I saw her today," she said softly. He looked up. "Who, Emily?" "She's expecting," she added. "She's living in a tiny place, teaching, helping at a clinic, still standing tall." His face changed. "She's the right one for our son," he whispered. His mother's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. "She has something money can't buy: strength, loyalty, heart." That same evening, Michael received a call from Nora. She gave him the address. He didn't wait, he drove himself to the small clinic in the quiet town. When he walked in, he saw her seated calmly, hands resting gently over her belly. She looked up and froze. Their eyes locked, neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Emily stood up, eyes watery, unsure if he'd be angry or hurt. "I didn't want to disturb your life," she said softly. "I just wanted to raise our child in peace." Michael stepped forward, his hands trembled as he placed them on her stomach. "You're carrying our child," he whispered. She nodded, and just like that he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "Thank you, Em. I've never been happier in my life," he said through quiet tears. "I thought I lost everything, but I just found everything." A few days later, Michael took Emily to meet his parents. She sat quietly inside the luxurious mansion, unsure. Then Chief Carter walked up to her, removed his cap, and looked into her eyes. "First and foremost, I need to say sorry," he said. "I judged you before I even knew you." Emily's lips parted in shock. "You gave our son something we couldn't, peace, and now a family," his mother added. She nodded too, moved to speak but couldn't. "Thank you," Chief Carter said gently. A few days later, Emily was sitting at the Carter mansion, her hands wrapped around a warm cup, when her phone rang. It was her family, not just her mother or Linda, but all of them, her uncles, her aunties, her cousins. And they didn't just speak to her, they asked to speak to Michael. One by one, they came on the line, apologizing. "We should have reached out to you long ago, but we were too ashamed. We were wrong. I misjudged you. I looked down on you, and now I have learned a valuable lesson." Emily's mother said quietly, "Thank you for loving her the way we should have." Michael listened, nodded, and forgave them with a soft voice because Emily's heart was big, and now his was too. Soon after, the story of Michael and Emily was everywhere: newspapers, blogs, news channels. The billionaire who was willing to give up everything for love, and the teacher who loved him without knowing his wealth or family name. Investors admired his courage, shares in Carter Group doubled, old partners returned, new ones joined. People trusted him more now, not just as a businessman, but as a man with a heart. And this time, Michael wasn't just the CEO, he was a man respected by the world for who he was, not just what he owned. As for Jerry, his fall came quietly, no press, no noise. One morning, a memo came from Heckwart. Heirs, he was terminated. An audit had revealed he had been moving company funds into fake accounts. Michael hadn't asked for it. He was too busy to care about a supervisor from a small branch he didn't even know. But karma had its way. Jerry left in shame, knowing he had lost not just a job but his own integrity. The sun shone softly over the Carter mansion. The air smelled of fresh jasmine and vanilla. A long red carpet stretched down the aisle, lined with golden chairs and rose petals. White doves sat in cages, ready to be released at the kiss. The world had heard of this day, the media whispered about it. But inside the estate gates, it wasn't about power, it was about love, true love. Guests were seated, including world leaders, CEOs, and distant royals, but Michael's eyes searched only for one face. Then she stepped out. Emily walked down the aisle slowly, her white dress flowing like water. Her hair was styled in soft curls under a veil. In her hands were white lilies. Simple, elegant, just like her. She walked like the queen she had always been, now seen by the world. Gasps filled the air, not just because of her beautiful dress but the glow in her eyes. Linda sat near the front, tears already on her cheeks. Emily's mother held her heart, overwhelmed by the beauty and grace of her daughter, not a village girl now but a bride the world had gathered to honor. As Emily reached the altar, Michael's eyes filled with tears. She looked up at him and whispered, "Hi." He whispered back, "You're breathtaking." The priest smiled gently and asked them to share their vows. Michael took her hand. "Emily Williams," he began, his voice trembling, "when I met you, you thought I had nothing, no name, no suit, no cars, but you didn't see a beggar. You saw a man. You fed me, you sheltered me. You believed in me even when I didn't believe in love. I stand here today not because I'm rich, but because your love made me whole. I promise to cherish, honor, and fight for you every day forever." Emily wiped her tears and spoke. "Michael Carter," she said, her voice soft and steady, "you came into my life as a stranger with tired eyes. I didn't know your worth, but I knew your soul, and I loved it. You made me feel seen, safe, and valued. Even when our love was threatened, you stood by me. You chose me even though I am not rich or powerful. I promise to walk beside you in riches and in storms, in silence and in celebration. You're my safe place, my home. I love you now and forever." The crowd sniffled and wiped away tears. Even the cameras stood still. When the priest finally said, "You may now kiss your bride," Michael cupped her face gently and kissed her with all the tenderness in his heart. The doves were released. Fireworks filled the sky. The crowd erupted into applause. Linda ran up and hugged her sister, sobbing, "I'm so proud of you." Emily's mother embraced Michael tightly, whispering, "Thank you for loving her." Michael's parents, humbled and changed, stood nearby, clapping with pride. The wedding reception was held under a glass canopy filled with golden lights, laughter, music, and dancing. But most of all, peace. Emily and Michael danced slowly under the stars. The world was watching, but it faded into the background because in that moment, nothing else mattered, only love and their promise to keep it always. Emily was no longer just a schoolteacher. She was Michael's wife. Together, they were proof that true love always wins. If you watched this far, please kindly subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment your thoughts below. Your support would really help us grow. Thank you and see you in the next one. If you subscribed,